As you know, some House Democrats are calling on President Biden to drop his re-election bid, but many are deciding to stand behind him despite what happened at the debate. That includes members of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus. The caucus chair and deputy chair released a statement last night saying, quote, "We stand with President Biden, and we look forward to our continued partnership on the road and legislative wins to benefit the American people." CBS News polling shows President Biden currently leads former President Donald Trump by just 2 points among Latino voters. In 2020, his support among those voters was more than double that of Trump's. The chair of this caucus joins us now from Capitol Hill, Democratic Congresswoman Nanette Barragán. Thank you so much for being here. Take us inside the deliberations, Congresswoman, about this decision by your caucus to stand with President Biden.
Well, this was a statement put out by me on behalf of myself as chair and the deputy chair, rather, SBI. And it was a statement of the two of us, of our standing with the president and the vice president. There's been a long partnership with the Biden-Harris administration for the last year and a half to take the Congressional Hispanic Caucus on the road. So this has been an extension of that and making sure that we stated our support of the president and the vice president, continuing to do the work of not just going out and engaging folks where Latino communities are, but it's also to highlight legislative wins that House Democrats have worked very closely with the Biden-Harris administration to achieve. One of those things, of course, is to also talk about things like the executive order the president just did to protect the spouses of U.S. citizens. Last week, also, we were with the First Lady in Allentown, Pennsylvania. We have over 50% Latino population to talk about education and workforce. So this is what it's about. It's about going out, it's engaging people, it's about talking about the issues and making sure people know what this president and this vice president have done and how we have worked to put people over politics.
Do you personally have any concerns about President Biden's health or his ability to beat former President Trump?
I would not support the president if I didn't think he could win. This is the one person who's beat Donald Trump. This is somebody who has a record of passing historic legislation that has a positive impact on the Latino community, whether it was expanding access to health care for veterans in the PACT Act, whether it was infrastructure that was creating lots of jobs, including in the Latino community in the construction field, whether it's STEM, which was we're going to put more money to make sure that there are students and students of color, including Latinos, in the pipeline for STEM to get those jobs. There are so many accomplishments, you almost don't know where to start, but it's about also moving forward. It's implementing those things and things like the IRA to combat climate change, but it's also what are we going to do moving forward for Latino communities. And we know we're going to continue to work with the president to try to get things like comprehensive immigration reform done, continue to expand access to health care coverage. Let's not forget what is at stake here.
Well, in terms
former
of
president.
Well, that's right. Let's dig into that. Former President Trump has called for sweeping mass deportations should he win the White House again. Do you believe the Latino community inside Congress, but also outside of Congress, is fully aware of Trump's policy position and proposal?
Well, that's exactly what I was about to say. In my district and throughout the country, when you talk to folks and you bring up Project 2025, sometimes you get a blank stare. They really don't know yet about what's in it. And so when you talk to people about not only what the president has done, but what is at stake and that former President Trump wants to do mass deportations and that innocent people are going to get swept up. The former president himself has said this, that is something that resonates with folks and saying, wait a minute, what? And there is great concern about another Trump presidency, which is why we've got to go out and we've got to make sure people understand what's at stake. It's not just that, it's women's reproductive rights. Just take a look at Nevada, where 81% of Latino voters there believe a woman should have the right to make decisions about their own body. These are decisions these are issues we have to go and talk about to continue that engagement. And I think when voters continue to hear about what has been done, what is at stake, and what they're going to continue to do in another 4 years, that we're going to be able to move this across the finish line, just like he did 4 years ago.
Congresswoman Barragán, we appreciate your time. It seems your caucus is standing by President Biden. It's been a week of a lot of consternation on Capitol Hill, but I'm sure the White House appreciates your position. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.